Hey, welcome to 12 Tone. How do you know you're playing in tune? For most musicians, it's as simple as plugging your instrument into a tuner and turning knobs until it tells you you've got it, but how does the tuner know? All it's doing is measuring frequencies. How does it decide which ones are correct? Well, the answer to that is more complicated than you might imagine, and the methods we use to decide have changed a lot over the years. Probably the most obvious answer would be to use the Harmonic Series, which gives us precise mathematical definitions for the relationships between different notes. If we just tune everything to the correct ratios, it should all sound great, right? Unfortunately, no. You run into lots of problems really quickly. Intervals that are supposed to be the same distance apart wind up wildly different, and you can really only get the right sounds from one specific starting note. It just doesn't work. But it's still our best definition for what pure intervals sound like, so can we try and salvage something from it? How about the perfect fifth? With a 3:2 ratio, it's the first non-octave interval in the series. Can we at least keep that? Well, this leads to what's called Pythagorean tuning. We start by picking a note like this D. If we go up a perfect fifth, we get to A. In Pythagorean tuning, that's exactly a 3:2 ratio. We can also go down a perfect fifth, then up an octave, giving us the perfect fourth, G, with a ratio of 4:3. We can keep going in both directions, getting E, C, B, F, and so on, but eventually we run into a problem. G sharp and A flat are supposed to be the same note, but these are not the same number. This gives rise to an important feature of Pythagorean tuning, the key center. You don't use the same tuning for all 12 keys, each one has its own. In this case, our key center is D. If we want to play in, say, F, we would have to retune our instrument entirely. But since G sharp and A flat aren't very common notes in the key of D, we can just pick one and hope it doesn't come up. This gives us a tuning with 11 truly perfect fifths, but it comes with a sacrifice. You have to include 1/5 that's nothing like it's supposed to be. In fact, it sounds so wrong that theorists call it a wolf fifth because it sounds like it's howling. Fortunately, it'll probably never come up as long as you don't stray too far from your key center. Another way to look at tuning is by the relationship between notes that are right next to each other, the half step. In Pythagorean tuning, there's actually two different kinds. There's the diatonic half step, which is what you'll find between certain scale degrees like F sharp and G, and the chromatic half step, which helps fill gaps between larger scale steps. And it's not a small difference. The chromatic half step is about 25% larger than the diatonic one. Again though, if you stick to your key center, it probably won't come up. But Pythagorean tuning has another problem. It's got a beautiful perfect fifth, but the major third is way off from where it's supposed to be. And the major third is important. It plays a huge role in defining tonality, so we really want it to sound right. We fix this with another tuning system called mean tone tuning. Here we do the same thing, but we flat the fifth just a little bit so that when we get to the major third, it's perfectly in tune. Compare this Pythagorean major triad to this mean tone one. Actually, to my ear, the first one sounds better, but that's because I'm used to modern tuning where our major third is really sharp. Mean tone tuning is more mathematically consonant, but it does make a lot of our other problems worse. The wolf fifth gets even further from where it's supposed to be. And as for our half steps, we still have two kinds, and this time they're even more different. The diatonic half step is over 50% larger than the chromatic one. Mean tone tuning works great if you're using it exactly the way you're supposed to, but if you get too adventurous, the entire house of cards crumbles. So what do we use today? We've had centuries to figure this out. What awesome solution have we come up with? Well, the modern system is actually kind of boring. We call it even-tempered tuning, and its guiding principle is consistency. Modern music changes keys, it borrows notes from outside the scale, and sometimes it doesn't even use a scale at all. We just can't afford to tie ourselves down to a single key center. In even-tempered tuning, every half step is the same distance from bottom to top. This means that a major third, for instance, will sound the same no matter what note you start on, but it also means that every single interval is wrong compared to the harmonic series. There's no perfect answer, it's all about trade-offs, but the benefits of even-tempered tuning seem to far outweigh the cost. At least for now. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you want to help make these videos possible, please consider supporting 12 Tone on Patreon. You can also join our mailing list for scans of all our episodes, like, share, comment, subscribe, and keep on rockin'.